A loop is one of the most powerful constructs of PHP programming language. It provides the ability to control how many times an operation or sequence of operations is performed in succession. There are times when we want to repeat certain things over and over again when a given condition is true. This is when a loop becomes very important. There are three main components that makes up a loop: the loop name or the type, a continuation condition, and the loop body. In this lecture, I will discuss about three types of loop: the while loop, the for loop, and the do while loop. Let's start with the while loop. The general syntax for a while loop is start with the name, why, and then the condition that you want to test. So this is going to be an expression that evaluates to true or false, and then the statements or the body. So in between the curly braces, we'll put whatever we want to do when this condition is true. So another way to look at the while loop is it checks the condition before executing the body. So it's going to check if the condition that we define here is true, only then will it execute the body. So this is called a pre-test loop because it tests first before executing. All right, let's see a very basic example. I will create a variable here, I, and then set the value equal to 50. In the condition, I want to check if I is not equal to 5. I say I is not equal to 5. I want to echo out a statement. The current value of I is I, and then just put a line break. And then immediately I'm going to decrease the value of I. So I'm going to say I minus equal 5. So at each iteration of the loop, I'm going to deduct 5 from I. So the first time that the loop run, I is 50. I deduct 5, I becomes 45. The next iteration, I deduct 5. From 45, I becomes 40. So let's run this on the browser. Okay, so at the first iteration of the loop, I is 50. Subtract 5 from 50 becomes 45. The next iteration, subtract 5 becomes 40, all the way until I becomes 5. So when I becomes 5, it doesn't print out the test that we have in here. The current value of I is I because it is pre-test. It checks first if this condition is satisfied. So why I is not equal to 5? It does whatever we have declared inside of the loop body. So at the point when I is 10 and then we subtract 5, the next iteration I becomes 5. So the while loop will check first. I is now equal to 5, so I'm just going to skip the loop. So something to take note of when writing loop is to always ensure that at a point in time during the iteration, your test condition becomes false. So let me just comment at this. Now, if we refresh, you see that it's just going to keep executing and the value of I is always 50. This is because I is always 50. I is not equal to 5 at any point in time. We don't have a way to make sure that during the iteration, I becomes equal to 5. So always ensure that there is a way for you to break out of the loop. If not, you're going to end up with an infinite loop, which will eventually crash your system. The next type of loop is the do while loop, which is very similar to the while loop. The major difference between the while loop and the do while loop is that the do while loop is post-test. It checks the condition after the loop body is executed at least once. All right, let me just comment at this. Let's say we have a variable here called total. Set it equal to 0. And then we have another variable, number. This is equal to 10. So what I want to do basically is add the value of num to total at each time the loop iterates. So at each iteration of the loop, I'll add the current value of num to total. So we're going to say do and then y. Usually the condition will be inside of the braces after the y keyword. So I'm going to say num is not equal to 10. All right, then inside of here, I'm going to say total plus equal num. And then we just echo num is num, put a line break. So right here, the first thing that we are doing is setting the value of num to be equal to total. But doing it this way, we ensure that the value of total is not overwritten. That's why we use plus equals num. It's the same thing as saying total equals total plus num. So writing it like this and writing it the way that I wrote it before like this is exactly the same thing. Now, if you look at the condition that we are testing, we are saying number is not equal to 10. So by right, this is not supposed to execute. Let's do a refresh on the browser. Num is 10. This is the main difference between the DoWhile loop and the while loop. The DoWhile loop is post-test, which means it's going to execute whatever I have inside of the body, okay, before checking the condition. All right, so let's modify this slightly. I'm going to say why num is not equal to 5. And then inside of here, I'm going to decrease num, remove 1 from num at each iteration of the loop. And then outside of here, I'm just going to echo total is total. All right, so initially we set num equal to 10, and then we store the value of num, current value of num, inside of this variable total. And then we echo the current value of num. We minus 1 from num, and then we check the condition. So our condition now is why num is not equal to 5. As long as num is not equal to 5, it's going to repeat what we have between line 12 and line 14. So let's do a refresh on the browser. There you see, num is 10, num is 9, num is 8, 7, and 6. And then when you sum 10, 9, 8, 7, and 6, what you get is 40. The next type of loop that I want to look at is the for loop. All right, let me just comment at this. The for loop has a slightly different construct. The way that it's defined is starting with the keyword for, and then there's going to be 3 different expressions. Okay, so this is the basic syntax. Say expression 1, and then we have the second expression, and then we have the third expression, and then we have the body. So at the beginning of the for loop, expression 1 is going to be checked, to be evaluated. And then when the loop iterates, the next iteration, expression 2, is going to be evaluated. And then at the end of the iteration, expression 3 will be evaluated. Let's look at a very simple example. Say expression 1, I equal to 50. Okay, so we declare the variable I and we initialize the value to be equal to 50. And then expression 2 is going to be the condition that we want to test. We say why I is not equal to 5. So we set I equal to 50, then we check the condition I is not equal to 5. And then lastly, we are just going to minus 5 from I minus equal 5. So this is the exact same thing that we did with the while loop here. We initialize I equal to 50, we check why I is not equal to 5, then we did all what was inside of here. So I'm just going to grab this and then paste it here. And then let's do a refresh on the browser. So we get the exact same result. So you can always decide which of the loop that you want to use, whether the for loop or the while loop. But generally, if you know the number of times that you want to repeat a certain statement or operation, then go for the for loop. But if you are not certain about the number of times that you want to execute the statement, then it is better to use the while loop.